Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Faction Focus. I am joined by Knight of Titan himself, Adam Camilleri, and we're talking Grey Knights. Adam, thanks for joining us.
My great pleasure to be here. I love the Grey Knights, and one of my personal armies that I play actively. I think this is going to be a very good time moving forward for them.
How do we think the Silverclad Brethren are going to hold up in the new edition then?
So it's an interesting thing to unpack from a Grey Knight's point of view. Of course, they're going to be maintaining their army rule, leaving the table, being delivered back to the table in various ways, which is going to be highly beneficial to get within range of the hidden ability, because of course the deep striking 8 inches away now is quite powerful for some of the ranged profiles. And then in addition, with how strong and prevalent doing actions are, being able to remove from the table, come back on, perform the actions where you need to, and then forcing your opponent to try and stop you, I think Grey Knights are genuinely going to get a lot of agency on the table moving forward.
Great. Well, let's take a look at their new detachments. We've got 3 to go through. We're going to start off with Argent Assault, which is a detachment that effectively buffs your Paladin squads.
Yeah, Paladin's a little bit of Terminator synergy here. The Paladins from your army, when they're selected to fight, if the strength of your attack is less than the toughness of the thing you're attacking, you actually get +1 to wound, which is kind of huge.
So it lets you effectively punch up into the biggest stuff in the enemy army. So obviously Grey Knight Paladins, experts at fighting greater demons, that sort of stuff, but also excellent into things like enemy vehicles, dreadnoughts, knights, that sort of thing.
Well, it's an interesting thing because they come in at base strength 6 if you can't enhance in any other way, and that strength 6 is kind of good for everything, because at strength 6, if your opponent is toughness 12, is the only time when you'll be wounding worse than a 4.
And there's not much that's toughness 12, right?
Yeah, there's not actually that much. I mean, Great Unclean Ones comes to mind, Dominus class Knights. Apart from that, you're winning everything else in the game on a 4 or better, which is pretty significant.
And obviously there are a series of enhancements and stratagems that also work with your Paladins. So the enhancement we're going to look at is Psychic Celerity, which gives the unit +1 to their charge rolls, which is just a great flat buff, right?
Just fantastic to have. Very nice and easy there. Of course, you can be returning back to the battlefield, being taken off the battlefield, possibly getting a firing solution or an angle here or there. And then the more times you're going to be able to bring this ability to bear, the more times it's going to pay off.
Yeah. And then a couple of very useful stratagems in the mix. You've got a Threat Ended, which gives one of your Paladin squads precision. So that's a really useful way to just basically pick out an enemy character and just get rid of it.
It's just good. Just get rid of them. 1 CP, make them go away.
I mean, obviously you can give precision to characters in your army already, but the ability to give it to an entire squad of heavy-hitting Terminators is pretty much going to kill any leader unit in the game.
A Paladin, just a single Paladin that hits on 2s, they all hit on 2s, with the +1 to wound active, it's kind of the same efficacy as a Space Marine captain with a Power Fist. And so 1 CP to give the whole unit of Space Marine captains with Power Fists precision. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
You've also got a very interesting stratagem in there, which is called Aura of Vengeance, and this is a slightly exotic way to keep your Terminators alive, or certainly to punish enemy units trying to take out your Paladins.
So this is very interesting. So 1 command point in the fight phase, when an enemy unit targets a friendly Paladin squad, that enemy unit's models have hazardous. So you're giving them hazardous to attack you, as in a bunch of them might harm themselves, theoretically die, or the models be removed. It's pretty interesting. What I like about this is that if you are being attacked on multiple fronts on a Paladin squad, so your Paladin squad is a huge amount of points and a large point.
Yeah, they tend to be outnumbered, right? Like dropped in the middle of the enemy army, you've got foes all around you.
Yeah, and your opponent at times will collapse upon that unit with 3 or 4 different units. So what this does is, for 1 command point, everything that attacks you, regardless of how many squads it is going to take the same penalty. So because it targets you, the Paladin squad, and not the enemy attacking squad. So if they have 4 units, well, all 4 units are going to have to roll the hazardous checks.
Which potentially is a huge amount of mortal wounds across the enemy army.
Yeah, absolutely massive.
It's very fun. So that's your Paladins. The next detachment we're going to look at is called Fires of Purgation. This is a detachment that works with your Purgation squads. Yeah,
this is a very interesting detachment. Purgation squads have had a place, a very small, very niche place in Grey Knight armies this edition, mostly as a debuffing piece for their pinning ability that they have, where they select a unit that they've shot, and that unit will be -2 move, -2 charge. This works into that by giving them an addition ability after they've chosen their pinning targets. That pinning target will also now have to take a Battle Shock text at -1, and Battle Shock is a lot more impactful.
So this is basically a tool to go, right, there's an enemy unit on an objective, I'm going to shoot at that unit, they're going to have to take a Battle Shock test and potentially stop them scoring points. So this is a game-winning ability, isn't it? This is not just like a few wounds here and there. This is a tool that's going to allow you to swing the points of a game in your favor.
In addition to that, what they're also doing is they're also still applying that debuff, that -2 move, -2 charge. So only now they're battle shocked, but they're kind of stuck there until you decide to go and remove them, I guess, if you want to invest more points in that direction. They kind of can't really move off that point effectively, but they're also not scoring any points while being there. So you've almost taken that unit out of the game for the time being, which I think is very powerful.
Really useful. Obviously, again, there's some enhancements and some stratagems that bolster that unit even more. The enhancement we're going to look at is called Boons of Demos, which is effectively a purgation squad's ranged attacks have +2 strength, which is a huge buff.
This is kind of massive. So, of course, purgation squads are the special weapons squads.
So you've got all the best guns, basically.
All the best guns. Yeah. The incinerators, the silencers, or the psi cannons. Of course, the psi cannons being the one that comes to mind immediately, coming in at strength 7, going to strength 9 is a massive change.
Even just the storm bolters are getting pretty scary with that, but any of those guns at +2 strength is great.
Strength 4 to strength 6, and you can have 4 of those special weapons in a squad, so you are magnifying their damage tenfold. Something like a Riptide at toughness 9, or let's say you're in the mirror match and you're fighting a Dreadnought at toughness 8. That +2 strength on the psi cannon is effectively +2 to wound, because you go from 5s to 4s to 3s at strength 9 into toughness 8. It's actually kind of...
I mean, my head went to the flamers, really. I was thinking about the 4 flamers and Overwatch and things like that. Getting that kind of combination might be pretty scary.
Absolutely there.
Great. Also, they've got a bunch of stratagems. The one we're going to look at is called Focused Immolation. That basically lets you pick one of your purgation squads, and they get devastating wounds and sustained hits.
This is wild. This is a very, very good ability. So it's your shooting phase, so you can't do this on the Overwatch. Probably for the best. Is 1 command point, and your purgation squads kind of just do so much damage. Of course, sustain hits 1, meanings that the only time where this isn't at full efficiency is with the incinerators, because you don't roll to hit with the torrent weapons, so the sustain doesn't come into effect. But the torrent weapons get auto hits and therefore most likely have more rolls to generate the devastating wounds. So it kind of comes back around.
Yeah, it's a great combination either way, really.
I think it's magnificent. I think this is a really powerful ability. I love this detachment because purgation squads, just 2 units of 5 purgation squads is probably enough to give you the best of the debuffing potential here, while still having access to a huge swathe of very powerful things.
You can immediately threaten 2 objectives, which is enough to swing the game in your favor. You can debuff 2 enemy units. You can do a huge amount of damage to them. Just a great combination. What
I love about it is that this is a unit, purgation squads, of course, working in with the teleport strike ability of the Grey Knights. It can be applied so many different times all over the table, because you can deep strike down from reserve, arriving from reserve using your army ability, target something on an objective you don't have time to take care of that turn, and see if you can battle shock them. And then not only battle shock them, like I said, you're going to keep them in place as well, because they're going to be much less likely to leave with the minus move. And then you pick them up, that unit of purgation squads, and apply that pressure somewhere else when you maybe don't have time to deal with another unit in a different area of the table, and you just kind of potentially take them out of the game for a turn. I think it's great little addition.
Yeah. One of the other kind of lesser used units in the Grey Knight army is the interceptors. There is an immaterial interdiction detachment that basically lets that unit have a bunch of buffs to become immediately more useful.
So this is a lot to unpack. So while I do agree, like, interceptors have been taken, they've usually been taken in 1 to 2 units of 5, whereas in this detachment you kind of want to go pretty hard into the paint, because I think you could build an army with 30 interceptors in this. So in your shooting phase, when a friendly interceptor squad has shot, if that unit did not make an ingress move this turn, as in did not arrive from reserve this turn, it can use this ability. If it does, that unit cannot use its personal teleporter ability, which is the move after shooting of 6 inches.
Which stops you from charging as well, the normal ability.
You are spot on, mate. But instead of that, you make a surge move of D6 plus 1. And of course, this doesn't have any terms and conditions upon it. And of course, we know a surge move can put you into combat automatically. But in addition, this also doesn't say you can't charge after this move. And so this is a pseudo advance and charge, in addition to having a bunch of upside of just going directly into combat and avoiding some of the pitfalls, the reactive moves, and other things you can play around. It is a piece of tactical beauty for the savvy Grey Knight general, and allows interceptors to function in a completely different way.
Yeah, so, I mean, on a very basic level, you could go 12 inches forward, you could shoot with those, let's say 30 of those models, then you could move D6 plus 1, then you could charge. So a really long threat range to both your shooting and to your potential charge range. And then they they fight pretty well when they get there.
They fight like a Grey Knight fights. A bunch of attacks. It's at strength 6, AP 2 damage. It's nothing. It is a profile fit for the vast majority of opponents.
Yep. Again, there's some enhancements and some stratagems that make them even more durable and hit even harder. The enhancement we're going to look at is Astral Overlap, which gives the unit stealth.
Perfectly acceptable. Stealth is a fantastic ability. It's an upgrade, so you don't need to be, have a character to it, because there is no character that can be attached to interceptors at this time. And just giving it stealth is fantastic. Why not?
And then a bunch of stratagems. The one that we've highlighted is Blades from the Beyond. That is a stratagem that gives one of your units of interceptors lance. So you already talked about investing heavily into this unit to be the combat unit, which isn't traditionally how it's been used, but actually is 10 guys, Nemesis Force Halberds, lance. That's doing the work.
Like I said, strength 6 is the breakpoint they operate at, and like I mentioned, with the +1 to wound in the previous detachment, the first one we covered, when you have +1 to wound active on strength 6, that is the perfect strength applicator, because that means anything right up until 12, you're wounding on 4, so which is the vast majority of the game. All of a sudden is 4s or better, and you might as well have anti-game 4+ as a keyword. It is that powerful. We have some detachments here which I like to talk about as things like accentuating forces that already exist. Like you have your teleport strike force, you have your banishers, so to speak, in your Grey Knight's Codex, and then there are ones that are accentuators to existing detachments. Immaterial interdiction, I think, is strong enough that it stands on its own 2 feet and can be a defining...
It could be the linchpin of your army, basically. You could build around that as your main...
Yes, you could build around 3 squads of choice of your size of interceptors, which all of a sudden become the pressure and the aggressive pieces in your
Nobody
army.
wants flying psychic lance space marines in their deployment zone on turn 1, do they?
The reason it's impactful is because you have a bunch of units that are going to be arriving from reserve. Now, when you have a unit that applies pressure like these interceptors do, all of a sudden your opponent doesn't get to spread out the board and stop your deep strikes, because you will just reach them with interceptors and kill them in combat. And when you apply that kind of pressure, the board opens up for your army rule to really take effect, and all of a sudden you have access to the backfield, the front field, the objectives, the actions. I think this is formative. I think this is extremely powerful. Cannot wait to see what the Savvy General does with the Grey Knights.
Amazing. Well, Adam, thank you so much for your insights and thoughts. That was Grey Knights. We will be back very soon with another Warhammer 40,000 faction focus.